Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Lorenzo. Hi,
How are
Ross.
you doing?
Hi, I'm Lorenzo. I was having some questions about the legitimacy of the votes in the TSC until newly elected members are on board. So how many members do we have in the TSC?
Well, I think we need to agree the the transition process, Bosco, right? Because what you can't do is expect a result to be announced and instantly everyone is available.
Yes.
So
just okay.
I will.
So what I would assume is for this meeting, the current technical steering committee is the one that is in force, and for subsequent meetings, as soon as the new members have been onboarded, that they are then the ones with voting rights.
Okay. So the question from me to Lorenzo is basically about being stated consistently in the TSC space in Gatebook that the current 5 members, the 5 members term expired in April 2026. So is this this gap? This is the question. So
I'll clarify also. Is this call already recorded? Good, great. Okay. Hey everyone.
Yes.
Let me know, Bosko, when is the right time. I don't know how many people will join.
But Kevin is the chair. I'm not.
Kevin is here. Very good. Okay, I'll give an explanation to this, and also congrats to the people that got elected or re-elected that might already be here. So as you guys have seen, the election results has been shared yesterday. First of all, the plan for onboarding is all the newly elected members, even if you're already part of the committee, you should receive an email sometime this week from the secretary, Bosko in this case, giving you all the details. We have onboarding sessions next week. It's mostly useful for the new members, but also the existing members might benefit from those because we are reminding about the policies that are in place. So the Bosko is right. So in the current Gitbook, we do say when does the term expire. So we have April election, and we used to have October elections. Now the elections are moved just to April because the term is 2-year. We do need to clarify a little bit better what we mean by that. So right now, in practice, the new elected members start their term the months after the election. So right now, for example, people expiring in April, they start May, and people expiring in October, they used to start in November. So just to keep it simple, as Kevin was saying, the newly elected members are not onboarded yet. This week, we already had some committees doing their sessions this week. So this is the last week of the current committees. Committee members will get onboarded this and next week. So next week, we need to make sure that the newly elected members are in the committee meetings, that they have access to all the details. If they need to be filled up with the kind of what's the latest, and you want to run any vote next week, it's up to the secretary and the chair to make sure they're up to speed. So next Wednesday, you can run a vote with them. And we'll make sure also to, as we go along, because Bosko raises a good point, we do need to clarify that's the general term, but then depending on the date when the election results are shared, then we need to allow the volunteers in the committee to close the cycle correctly. Fair points. Any questions? Doubts?
Bad news for Sebastian and Nicolas. You cannot leave just yet.
You need to be here forever. Yeah, I also would recommend, I don't know if this was mentioned, is good practice also in other committees for the committee members that are exiting, if they would still like to contribute, to remain if the committee is happy as SMEs. That's usually something really good. But yeah, that's up to the committee, of course. Any questions, any doubts?
I think we have that clear, Renzo. You've got some procedural issues to clear up, but it makes no sense to reduce the voting membership until we have new voting members onboarded. So
I lost you, Kevin. You've muted.
Oh, I think you muted yourself as you were speaking.
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't mute myself. Something muted me. So for the benefit of the recording, congratulations to Neil Davis, Christian Taylor, Alonso Benavides, Marcin Samoltuski, and Alex Moser on their election or re-election to the Technical Steering Committee. Thank you to Nicholas, to Sebastian, and to Duncan as outgoing members. I know you didn't stand for re-election, so there's no shame in that. And commiserations to those who did stand and who weren't elected, of course. So thank you everyone, Sebastian, Nicholas, and Duncan, for your service over the last year. And as Lorenzo was saying, please do feel free to join in these meetings as SMEs. We run meetings as open meetings, so if there are topics of interest, you're very welcome to attend the meeting. And you're also very welcome to join to continue in the open Slack channel, the public Slack channel, and to raise issues there, of course, or via Discord. So thank you, Lorenzo. Was there anything else to say about the election process?
Not unless you guys have any questions. Otherwise, I know you have a lot to discuss. I'll leave you to it.
You
Votes to
covered
make?
actually agenda item already, so
Good, done. You see,
we
making
didn't
progress.
waste any time. Yep.
Great. And the term, so the term of the incoming members is, this is a 2-year term as I understand it, so it will expire in 2028.
Correct. So April 2028, and actually something to mention, perhaps this is useful as well, as agreed with the ISC. We didn't follow up on that yet because we wanted first to allow the newly elected members to come in. Anyone that got elected in October, we will provide a process to confirm that you're happy to remain a voting member until April 2027, where your seat then will get re-elected for 2 years. But nothing to do now, just like an FYI, in case you were wondering what's going to happen for that. But you're going to get a detailed process in the next months or so.
Great. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. So shall we move on to the agenda? Boss.
Just give me a sec. Yeah, just give me a second. It's prepared. Okay, we have actions from the last meeting. Just a second to prepare. It was on 29th. Okay. Okay. Sharing the screen. Okay, actions from the last meeting. This. Okay. With me and text to meet immediately after the call to finalize and submit the DSC budget proposal. It's submitted, it's on the closure, it's on the agenda, right? For Alex to share the links for expert feedback on K1000 and Maple Post 75 for committee and community review. So we don't have Alex here. So
However, the committee, the Parameters Committee at its last meeting last Thursday voted to push forward the change to min pool cost of 75, but not, but to push away to put the K equals 1,000 we felt wasn't needed more discussion.
okay, would there be a community review?
Well, the point is we're now making a PCP of it, a parameter change proposal of it, which then is the review process. Okay, so that we're not, there'll be a review of the 70 impulse 75. The 1,000 was not accepted by the Parameters Committee to move forward at this time.
Okay.
A reasonable statement. I think that's
it's still open. It's still open now. Brian, anything you were present? Anything you want to add to that?
I think that was pretty much it. More discussion on K. Looks like we came to a consensus on lowering min pool costs. So.
Okay. For you and me, Kevin, to devise a formal communication plan for the app developers regarding TOTUS cost model risks. So I didn't do anything unless you did as well. We didn't do much.
No, we can keep it as an action, Bosco. There's a process of communication happening with the DApp developers via the hard fork working group. We just need to make sure that they're informed of the risks, and we need to highlight it.
Can you help me so we can actually action this? So can you help me articulate that well offline, and I can make sure that it is included in the comms plan. So we add it there for the hard fork.
Yeah,
Okay.
Appreciate you've been a bit busy with other things, Bosco.
Come on, you too as well. Okay, for Ryan.
So we have Alex Moser has just joined us.
Apologies.
Alex, congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Wiley. So continue coordinating with SIP editors to refine the maximal list of workable SIPs for what is actually happened in the last week about that when it comes to that.
I still have a working document of possible SIPs. Most of them are covered by different line items, though, which puts us in a weird spot. So the question is how to get the remaining ones into the community's hand. So I'm still open to ideas on that. I can share the link to it in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Kevin,
You can
Right.
hold that item for. I will do that. I've not had time to do that yet.
okay, for inviting IO cryptographers, right? You're referring to that.
Inviting an cryptographer.
Aha, okay. Okay, great.
Could I ask that in that we ask them to also present the risks, right? And so I don't want their research. I want the risks to Cardano as well, please, so that we can turn around and articulate those risks.
Which ones are you talking about?
The IOG cryptographers. I thought we'd moved on to that. Yes.
Yes, post-quantum, the risks from post-quantum cryptography.
And the risks in particular to the Cardano ecosystem, right? Not the general risks, because there's so many different style of risk.
Neil, did you see the Cardano problem statement, CPS?
Yeah, well, it's great, but if they're going to present to us, I'm hoping that people will whatever slide deck we have will go public. I would like that to be a self-contained unit. That's all. Okay.
At least those that are sort of somewhat high profile. And this has this.
Okay, I've made note of that, Neil. I'll pass it
Thank
on.
you.
Not the hedge for the weird Americans, but like the other
Okay.
time.
You've got a lot of background noise, Alex.
Sorry, link incoming now.
Okay. Next one, intersect election results. We basically covered that unless with Lorenzo being on the call, but unless you want Kevin to continue that since Alex joined later.
So we can skip that. Alex, you're encouraged to join the onboarding sessions to refresh your knowledge of the code of conduct, etc.
Happy to. When is it going to happen?
There's going to be an invite this week for that, but it will happen next week. So the invite will go this week. Okay, next one, layers risks. So Neil and Sebastian.
Great. So what I've agreed is we'll leave 20 to 30 minutes for discussion on this. So this will be the major discussion item today. And I'd like to leave a little bit of time to cover the budget proposal and the hard fork status.
Do you want to put this at the end then?
No, let's do it now. So,
So the do we want to do it now? Do we want to do it with the new committee? That's the next question.
let's do it now because
Let's do
Sebastian.
it now.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Right. Okay. So a slide deck was produced, was shared, response made. How do you want to proceed? I can go through the risks that I was identified, and we can take it from there. To me, okay. Shall I? Wait. Let me just.
I think if you can present the major risks you've identified.
Right. Okay.
Neil, and
Okay. So the major.
wait. Let me finish. So if you present the major risks you've identified, and then we ask Sebastian to respond if he's got responses to that, or we can have an open discussion as they arise. Okay. So
Okay, right, that's the way to do it. Let me just pick up the slide deck that was there. Let me just view this one slide at a time. Let me.
has everyone else had the opportunity to read this, or just Neil and Sebastian?
Okay, so I was trying to create an initial risk. My concern here, and I think it's a concern the TSC should hold collectively, is that assuming success about when linear Laos is effectively, is in there and in a state where it could be enabled, what will there be sufficient evidence to work out that it's what are the risks that we will still be holding, what are the performance risks we'll be holding, how on earth are we going to make a decision to actually when to enable it, etc., etc. Okay. Now, it has been my concern that this is the framing it right. I'm framing here. I'm assuming that it meets its functional requirements, as they say, right? It functionally operates. I'm not even questioning that will not potentially be achieved. But even if it functionally operates, will it actually be, will we be in a position? How do we go about working out whether it should be turned on or not? Okay, and to me, there's a bunch of performance risks that have to be considered and talked through. Okay, so now I've clearly tried to articulate these several times. It's been a bit difficult, and the fundamental risk here is that I see is that the linear Laos system is a non-work. It's a preemptive system, and it's a preemptive system that wastes work, and it is known that preemptive systems that waste work do not have what's the word, monotonic performance characteristics. Only they have turning. They don't do this as load goes up. Okay, and that is a very well. Sorry, if you happen to have done any queuing theory or systems design experience, etc., that is a sort of known fact. To the extent that I went and asked Claude that very simple question, and it gave back me an answer this afternoon, which I will attach to the thing. So the point is that I think this is why we have a risk. We have a risk because I think fundamentally the system design is one whereby it has set itself against known properties of distributed systems, and therefore I'm questioning. The question is, how is it going to manage those performance risks, right? Now, in terms of that, I then went and asked
the the design that caused that, Neil.
Well, the concept of the point is it's a preemptive system, right? And it's so this is the fundamental abstract risk, okay, is that it's a preemptive system in that the EBs you can do work to construct an EB, and that work is discarded, right? And I'll just read you the thing here is that a monotonic response is achieved if and only if, actually let me just put the summary in here because it's a work. Okay. This is, I asked a very, actually, let me, to give you some content, this is what I was thinking. And the nice thing is since I first thought this thing called Claude has come along, right? And actually you can ask stupid questions, you can ask questions like this and you get back what the literature says. Right? Now you can believe it or not, but the top level question I asked is this one, which is, in a preemptive processing system, right, under what conditions can a monotonic response in terms of work done versus offered load be achieved? That's the top level question, right? Because if the thing turns over, right, okay. The second thing is non-technical risk. Yeah, well, that's it, right? This is the good enough question, actually. So the summary, right? Right. So the summary condition is that in order to achieve this, you need to have a work conserving system which uses, and this is the keywords here are preemptive resume, right? So if you do work and you preempt it and you resume where the work was and continue forward, then that can make a system that has a monotonic behavior. But actually, that's not what linear LAOS does. It throws all that work away and has to redo that work in some sense. Okay. So what I'm saying is that I see as the fundamental fix, right? The fundamental issue, right? Go on, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks for this additional context. This was not seen in the slide deck, by the way. It was
I know,
just
but
jumping
Sebastian,
Please let me respond.
it was what we thought. It was the very initial discussion we had, though. Yes.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
hear
we had a similar conversation half a year ago. That's true. Yeah. But so, okay, if you want to discuss now this this framing, which is, as I said, it was not in the slide deck, which I can and did relate to the team.
No,
right?
What I'm suggesting, Sebastian, is in setting context for this conversation, right? As you just agreed, half a year ago, longer, I made this point, right? That basically the system that was being designed was one that was basically flouting this requirement, okay, in various ways, okay. So then, you know, I basically said, okay, you're trying to build, in order to build something that works, right? In order to build something that works, you've got to, there's a whole bunch of new conditions you have to avoid. So I'm saying that's when the framing comes into place, right? Right. So then I asked it to frame the question of, I'd look at all the material and I was trying to find a way of articulating this better, right? Right. And I went to Claude and asked some questions, right? And I basically thought, well, let's attack this question from the point of view of the throughput that the system can sustain, right? And what were the issues that basically from what was presented, what were the issues that Claude came up with, right? Now we can argue exactly, and which we can discuss. We could discuss whether it picked the right ones or not, right? Right. So I'm just going finals and initial. This is my conversation. Go down by top level risks. I was trying to construct a risk framework. Okay. The way I see this is that the TSC is going to be asked at some point in the future to make an assessment of this, as to whether linear LAOS can be turned on, right? How do we construct some way of the risks that we are being asked to talk to? Okay, so this is the beginnings of that process. Okay, and this is some of the risks that were found, okay, or were looked at. Hopefully the discussion, the structural discussion, right? Well, you're jumping ahead. I see you jumping ahead towards full LAOS, linear LAOS. That's
side conversation. Neil, just carry on with you.
Oh yeah, it's difficult. Sorry, I lied.
I also can't read the chat right now because I'm on the go. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe somebody can also help out giving context by sharing the response document, a link.
Okay. I have the response document ready to share as well.
Yeah, then please put it in the chat. That would be good because it's public there and we can continue the conversation there no matter what.
Well, actually, I think if we're gonna we can share it in I've only got it as a PDF. Sorry, a marked up PDF. Right. So there were two different. The point is, just identified there are two different diffusion problems, right? One is that you have to diffuse the EB object itself, and the other is you have to diffuse the transaction. So this is what this viewpoint is taking, is looking at the performance risk assessment of the system as described. When deployed, running at its capacity, is it reasonable to expect it's going to work? Okay, right? And how do we assess this? How do we make that again a risk assessment, right? So there's two main. Part of the thing was that I asked it to focus on the diffusion question. There are lots of other questions, but this is one of them. So how long is it going to shift thing? And it's basically come up with the fact that it's going to shift the EBS object as a block, right? So we're shipping 512K blocks effectively as an EBS, and the reference transactions must already be in the voters mempool, right, or via DXDiffusion. But this is up to 12 megabytes so of data. Right. So the point is in the actual discussion, it talks. And I've read through the response. The key thing is that it acknowledges that efficiency starts to drop when EBs and transactions are delayed by 6.5 seconds. Okay, so it's acknowledging that the simulations itself is showing this property I just discussed at the very beginning, which is the fact that the performance is non-monotonic. Okay, and it has a turning point. And
I can. So we responded on that, and this efficiency, which is stated, is basically how much of the actual throughput capacity you actually gain, right? And by delaying things arbitrarily, now this is like adversarially delaying EBs. This was the experiment you quoted here. We assumed, because we just were looking at for the 6.5 second cliff, what you're claiming. It was seemingly an attack where some stake-based nodes would deliberately delay delivery of up to 6.5 seconds and then arbitrarily longer, right? And we saw basically it gradually decreased the efficiency to that point of basically in the end stabilizing exactly by the proportion of the stake an attacker has. Like they have the inherent power of not doing the thing we asked them to do, which is endorsing or certifying EBs, right? And that is obvious, right?
But although you're saying this is an attack scenario, right? Any operational scenario in which this occurred by 6.5 seconds would cause such a problem. Agreed?
Yes. So if data is delayed too long, we will not see it contribute to higher throughput. That particular EB.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that's the approach it's taking here. The fact that how that circumstance occurred is basically it's taking that 6.5 seconds. And what's picked up is there is a 6.5 second safety margin. Things that arrive after that do not contribute to a higher throughput, irrespective of how. I mean, yes, you quoted the fact that you were looking at an attack scenario, but you have identified part of the predictable region of operation of your system by doing that. It's all right.
So this is a similar issue to Peros call down, right? You could be in a situation where you're not getting the benefit of the protocol, but there's
I wouldn't say it's as bad as Peros.
No, but it's the same kind of thing. You're not getting the benefit, but there's no.
No. But that's. It's saying it degrades. Basically, this is a turning point in the performance space, right?
Right, but unlike Preos, where you.
That's a cliff. That's definitely a cliff, right? Whereas this is a turning point. Basically, once you've achieved this, right? Once the system observation, once the operation of the system starts delaying things by this amount of time in some way, by whatever mechanism, you've reached a point where more load creates less throughput.
You make it useless or
that's not true. Like if you exceed that point, it basically an attacker can only limit the throughput proportional to their power they have in terms of stake, and also in whatever means made them to kind of delay these EBs. But this is always a decrease in the availability of this high throughput, right? And this is always proportional to what their power is in the system, which is the same as today, right?
No.
Exactly the same.
No. The point is, Sebastian, this is why I got you to agree, right, that anything that delayed it by 6.5 seconds would cause this problem. That's the point, right? you keep on pushing it back to the adversarial environment and then trying to push the argument out that, oh, there must be this amount of adversary.
Yeah, but
You're saying, but it doesn't matter how you're making the assumption that you've constructed a system that if there's no adversaries, I'm not necessarily saying there's a particular state-based adversarial attack here. It's just one of the ways in which the safety margin can be considered.
Yeah, but this is the same as today, right? If you would delay arbitrarily blocks longer than some time, they will be not extended as often, and in the end, the actual sequence throughput is slower.
The point is, in today's environment, that work, only that amount of work of that block is lost. In this environment, whole of
the case here. No. This is only the endorsement of this block is lost, and it's not even guaranteed that this is mutually exclusive.
Okay. So I think you failed to capture the basic. This is part of the reason why 6 months ago I tried to have this conversation, and I don't think people captured the basic fact. Right? You are doing a lot more work with the EB distribution. When it gets thrown away, the work it did, it's consumed resources. That work is no longer. That work has to be redone. It's not a preemptive resume. It's a preemptive discard.
I don't think this is the case, because we have exactly these mechanisms in the system where most of the work, and it's really by far the biggest parts, is actually reused. If the transactions are basically valid, right, then we can include them exactly the same way on later endorsement.
But the movement of the endorsement block, the movement of the votes, all represents,
which is a tiny fraction of what is actually happening in the system.
Look, you're arguing, right? You're arguing that this is a de minimis problem that will not occur in practice. I'm arguing you have to prove that.
No, I say this is happening in practice, but if it happens, it is just decreasing throughput. It is not the problem to the system in itself.
It's only happening in simulation. It's not happening in practice. The point is, as your document, as we go through this a bit later, we'll start talking about, we talked about, you've not dealt with any loss in the network at all in your simulations, right? Where was the other point? I mean, the point is, the reason why I asked this question, right, is that you are quoting, we've gone around this cycle several times. And the way we go around this cycle is I put these things together and you say it's not true, right? But I'm saying the conditions under which you are saying it is not true are not realistic conditions. They're actually just the things you're getting from the simulation. You seem to be making the assumption that the simulation and reality are going to be the same thing. And I'm
not claiming that they are the first proxy of what we have, of what we can simulate. We have other approaches too, which kind of add additional evidence. I liked what you say, like, what would we need to know whether to know this is actually safe to turn on eventually?
That's right.
I would love to have that conversation, and let's find out what evidence we want to see. And I think we have been presenting lots of evidence in that direction already. And we've been responding that some things have been probably missed out in this analysis so far. That's why I put now also the response here.
Okay, that's right. You see, this is right. Let me scroll down a bit. Right. Let me scroll.
Right. We lost your screen share, by the way.
Lost my screen share. Wait 1 second. Yeah, my window closed on itself. All right, let me just all right, transport reality. So I wanted to look at this from the point of view of moving the data around, purely on the grounds that if you can't make the average data, if you can't make the data movements fast enough, you can't achieve the throughputs, right? And the point is that don't forget, we have to, let's just take one of the issues here, which is actually one of the issues here, which is basically moving. So moving the block is not going to be an issue per se, right? Okay. Well, no, in moving the block, it's starting from slow start and coming up. when you're moving but you have to move the 12 megabytes of data. Now, what this is basically saying is, can you, at certain levels of loss, right, even 10 to the minus 5 loss, your throughput, your TCP throughput, is going to become the limiting factor for moving the transactions around. Now, you're going to say, but we exploit a store and forward system with multiple paths, etc., etc. Okay, to which I'm going to say, fine. But the thing is, moving the data by TCP, it represents a bounding case for those objects. You're not going to get transactions to move faster by sending them over multiple paths, because the multiple paths still preserve sequencing. There's no out of orderness in the distribution of data. So one of the arguments I'm making here is that this is a fundamental problem of the scale of the problem, is that your 12 megabytes of data has to be shipped to all of the nodes, and actually I don't think you will be able to achieve that when those nodes are spread out across the world. Right?
Yeah, and my point is, if we don't get to achieve it, there is no certification, and there is no endangering of browse because of that. If we get to achieve it, we get more throughput, or basically we only get to achieve it if we don't need to submit all the 12.5 megabytes to the far end of the world, right? Of course, if mempools are mostly consistent, or they are at least in a fraction, then we're most likely to hit this. And so Laos is an optimistic protocol. It's probably the first I haven't read back the paper in a while, but it's probably one of the first sentences in the abstract. It's an optimistic protocol.
Right. Kevin, you raised your hand, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Sebastian, I've put into the comments, one of the things that we have to be sure about is that Laos doesn't impact the underlying Preos protocol. So this is probably clear it's probably clear directly because it's designed as an overlay, but you also need to verify the network properties. And that's partly what Neil is saying, that there could be some interaction between.
Well, we
are explicitly acknowledging exactly that, right? And we would rather want to talk about exactly that problem as we have modeled in our threat model, right? So a kind of a withholding, either by stake or by network control, to kind of lower the throughput. Yes, that's it. That's the design. That's the whole idea of it. That's okay. But if that one is can be engineered in such a way that we get to, in Laos, this means in any Laos, that the certificate is included in a block, such that you need to have the data available for adopting that block, right? That's exactly the point when it starts to endanger the browse safety argument, because the block adoption must happen with diffusion within a bounded delta. Now, this is true, by the way, for all research Laos protocols, right? Whenever you have a certificate, you must be sure the data is available to the majority, actually to the vast supermajority, like kind of 99% of honest stake or remaining nodes. And this is exactly the key. And I think it would be wonderful if we talk about that one more in detail. That's exactly what we put in the response, right?
Right. And what this, by using what I'm now showing slide 14, what we're basically saying is that at 14, basically the Matthias signal ceiling, this may not even be achievable transatlantically. That's what slide 14 was saying. Right? On average, again, on average, right? So basically the single flow bulk transfer is the fastest point of delivery. And this basically suggests that your bandwidth delay product, or your Matthias ceiling, which is based on some level of loss, right, in your system, means that basically you can't achieve that across the Atlantic, right? Because
So what would be the effect of that, Neil? The effect would be to split the network somehow into.
No. I'm seeing this as an unpredictable throughput problem to start off with. I'm not even thinking about the underlying safety argument yet, right? But I'm seeing this as a problem that if you if you market and sell Leos as a throughput enhancement system, right, and then basically under load it falls apart, and you get non-linear turnover of the performance, you've basically got a massive PR problem. You've got a massive legitimacy problem. That's my bigger concern, right? Right? You've jumped into security and the safety. I'm much more concerned that this becomes a liability when deployed. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're focusing on the performance.
I'm focusing on the performance because I made the assumption that they did everything else basically reasonably right. Okay, right, right. It is sold as an optimistic throughput solution, right? Agreed, right. However, if that throughput can be destroyed by load, you're going to be the laughing stock.
So how would you prove us that this is actually destroyed under load? Because we modeled it, we simulated it, and we are currently validating this in more and more concrete real systems.
So Sebastian, you've never modeled loss. You say that in your response.
Well, what did you say? I didn't hear it acoustically.
Sorry?
Never modeled? You've
never modeled loss.
Yeah, we didn't, and neither did any research done on Preos so far at all. Like, it was all factored in, like just generally lower latencies. And this is the case, right? The latencies are not very kind of ambitious. They are factoring in loss. We followed basically prior art there. Of course, it can be improved, and we would be like interested to know how exactly this could be improved.
No, I'm sorry, that's a fallacious argument. Let me explain why. The previous approaches never pushed the network throughput to anywhere near the constraints that we are seeing here, right? You're trying to push this thing. So what this is saying is that, you know, you're getting a transatlantic throughput under a loss, and under loss, loss is going to affect the performance of this protocol a lot more than it does affect the current one, because actually, right, that's it. There's a lot more, right? I'm trying to say that when you try to look at what I took here was a volumetric average throughput issue, and I tried to analyze to say, does this look like it's at the edge or beyond what it's asking the network to do and how it's going to behave? And the answers I got worried me, right? In that we're saying you can't do this transit. It's saying under these conditions you can't achieve that sustainable throughput, right? Now you're now arguing and I'm right. This is, well, that's what it's saying. You have also say you haven't looked at loss.
Like, let's talk about this at which specific loss you're talking load you're talking about. Now, was like the system modeling, right? You agree that it's an optimistic protocol, right? That basically it can do things which Preos cannot do. For example, in Preos, we need to submit all the transactions in a block. We basically do that because we ensure we get the data availability problem completely out of the question, right? In terms of like whether this is fine or not and whether it can be reached and adopted or not. In Leos, this is not the case, deliberately, because we avoid resubmitting all the transactions which are in any block producer's mempool at any point in time. We don't resubmit them. We just endorse them. That's the idea, right? And then only the missing things are basically transmitted again through network, which must be strictly less than what everything is already today. So at actually why is Preos safe today? Why is double Preos load not safe? Or basically, why would it not be safe with Leos, where actually double the load of Preos in Leos doesn't mean actually more transactions being sent around with just normal Preos load, which is once for transaction submission and also once in the blocks?
Chairman, I refuse to have a conversation about the technical merits of Leos and Leos and under this in this forum, because what I'm looking for is to find a risk assessment of the system they're producing, right? These are not arguments about the risk. They're arguments against similarities and things like this, all of which they are also saying in their response, several of the points I brought up are things they have not considered, right? So I'm not going. Why I should not. It is up to the vendor to produce the evidence that the risks are being managed. That's what I'm trying to get to, right? Right, and I am not. Why? I don't mind having this discussion, and I mean, this is why I wanted to have these discussions and all the rest of it. But every time we end up with this discussion, right, it becomes one in which I don't believe I'm getting a genuine response from them in terms of engaging with the issue. They try to they're not engaging with the issue. They're trying to just destroy the question, right? Which is not a way, it is not the way in which you perform risk assessment, right? You can't say it's not going to happen, right?
No, we're saying, as you say, we are acknowledging some of the risks exactly in that response. And I would love to have the conversation on the threat model, and which I'm not even sure which was considered in this analysis. We were basically pointing out, are you sure this and this and this has been considered? Because it seems, it has the impression that some of these things were not considered. For example, that all the waste is lost, all the work is lost, which is not the case because there is definite reuse in the system design. And we were not sure whether this was considered or not.
Sebastian, this is where I find it a bit awkward, right? You accept that work is being done that's thrown away.
A very little one, but yes.
You accept that there is work that's being done and thrown away.
Yeah, like today also in Browse, there is work done which is thrown away.
Yeah, okay. That has been carefully analyzed to be shown to be stable. Right? That's the point.
Yeah, I would suppose so, and I would like to point us out where if it is not the case. And we pointed you to exactly the simulations
that work was done because basically the likelihood of getting the whole work on height battles, it's mainly height battles, and it's slot battles and height battles are where that work can get wasted, right? And it turns out that the slot battle ratio was adjusted to actually make sure that in the presence of the wasted work, right, it would still have the same throughput. So that was taken into account when PREOS was originally designed. Okay? Here, you are moving substantially larger objects. You are throwing away all the votes, and the voting is not a cheap process.
In comparison to what is actually happening otherwise, in terms of what, like the data we need to kind of send around, it is always very cheap in comparison. Like right. At the moment, Laos enables, just let me one thing, right? At the moment, the optimistic scheme is basically tried and attempted. At that very moment, we basically have the chance of not sending around the transactions at the same time. That already is offsetting all the loss we have for non-successful certification.
I come back to when I sat down and went through all the PERAS stuff, right? And looking at, and you are using basically, correct me if I'm wrong, basically the same mechanisms as proposed in PERAS for doing the voting. Yes, right. There were interesting cases in which the amount of the volume, the last to finish synchronization questions, and all of that were constraints as to the stability of the PERAS protocol, because you could disrupt it too. And the basic conclusion of that work, from my point of view, from a technical perspective, right, was that this PERAS was reasonably easy to disrupt with small amounts of activity, with small amounts of adversarial stake, or with sets of increasing delay. You are now proposing to move so much data and increase so much. You're looking for. Right, number one, let's stop there. Let's not even take that. So I'm arguing that basically you are arguing that this turning point doesn't exist, and I'm arguing that the very first point is that such turning points will exist if you do this. Now, the question we now have to do is, can we stop the system ever reaching that turning point? Right? And at what point, and this is where the risk assessment comes in, right? Or the risk modeling comes in. If you have a turning point in the system, we cannot permit the system to get there during normal operations. Otherwise, its throughput will drop to the floor, right? If we really get to that point, and if we get to the point where during normal operation of the system, a small amount of activity, of adversarial activity, be it network level or thingy level, could turn around and completely destroy the effective throughput of the system, right? Then that represents a reputational risk to the Cardano ecosystem, because somebody can basically trigger, I'm saying something that could be triggered on demand, right? And what this, the tables I'm seeing here, for example, of the percentage accepted at different throughputs, these were all done under idealized network considerations, and you're already telling me, they're saying it at the higher loads, we're at 350, we're below 75% already, right? And these are all conditions which are assuming everything else is ideal. And my concern is, I come back to the beginning. How do we formulate? Are you arguing these don't exist? Or are you arguing I'm arguing how the hell do we assess these numbers such that when the community looks to the TSC in a couple of years' time, when this comes to be deployed or turned on, right? Because it will be a couple of years before it comes to right. How do we make a judgment? Kevin.
Thanks, Sebastian. So I'm conscious of the time. We do need to discuss one or two issues relating to the hard fork. So it's been.
I will share my notes and all the rest of it.
Please do. So I think we need to come back to that. Sebastian, I'm aware you're not a member of the TSC from after this meeting, but we would appreciate it if you could join a future meeting.
Yeah, just ping me on it, right? But I would really we see constantly, even this 40 minutes, 50 minutes, even if Neil and me would talk face to face for 2 or 3 hours, it will not be solved, right? A written discourse where we basically can take in forth and back conversations is what we need. I appreciate that you put this in writing, Neil, very much.
Right.
Comment
So,
and find the details, what you can use, the references, but maybe put on the Google Doc.
So my question to the TSC, right, is this is a risk we have to manage. We have to find a way of managing it.
Absolutely. So the first thing is to record the risk, the potential risk, and then to record the response.
So and what I'm trying to, and that's what I'm trying to enable here, right? Is I'm trying to enable that the TSC can perform its function down the line. Okay.
So thank you very much, Neil.
Okay, right.
And thank you, Sebastian, for responding. And we'll look forward to continuing this in a future meeting. Could I just finish off? We need to look at the status of the Van Rossum hard fork. We're reaching a fairly critical point there. So there are a number of issues to raise. The first one is the hard fork on preview. This we took an out of band vote on that, majority vote on that, and the hard fork, protocol version 11 hard fork on preview will happen either tomorrow or the day after, but certainly this week. So it was held back slightly to allow Block Frost the opportunity to upgrade. We're expecting it to happen very shortly.
Just to be sure that people understand that you are speaking about enactment also happen this week.
Enactment,
not only voting.
Voting and enactment
yeah.
will happen this week.
Yes.
So we took an out-of-band vote on that, and we've agreed to progress it. So that is an informational item. The team is monitoring the situation to determine whether there are any issues affecting enactment. We need to submit the parameter update, Plutus parameter update to pre-prod, and we need to agree to do that. So Alex, at the parameter committee meeting, we had determined that we would put forward the Plutus upgrade on pre-prod. We need to confirm this with this group that they're willing to do that. So happy to take a show of hands, but is there anything you want to say in support of the upgrade? Anything what you want to raise as an issue at this point?
Me?
Yes.
No,
Speaking
I
for you,
think
Brad.
everybody here is aware of it by now quite a bit.
Great. So my understanding from the parameter committee meeting is that the parameter committee is not seeing anything that should hold back the Plutus upgrade. We're therefore asking for confirmation from this group to proceed with the Plutus parameter upgrade on pre-prod.
When?
And to do that as soon as possible, Bosco.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because if you lean into the hard fork on pre-prod, potentially end of this week, then I suppose Plutus cost model needs to precede that one at least for a bit.
The timing isn't too important, Bosco.
Okay. Okay.
But of course, if the Plutus parameter upgrade is not enacted, then the primitives, the new Plutus primitives won't be available.
Yes.
So we can take could maybe just a show of hands. Those in favour, please thumbs up. Alex, you got a question?
No, I was raising my hand in favor.
Raising your hand in favour. Okay. So those in favour, can we recall this? Neil, Alex, myself, Leandros. Make that, is that 4 votes in favour?
Yes.
Fine.
Sebastian, 5.
In favour. Those against? Thumbs up or thumbs down is probably better.
Any reaction?
Let's say thumbs down, just to make it consistent. So no votes against, any abstentions? So we'll proceed on that basis, and we will aim to submit the governance action as soon as practical on pre-prod. So we'll synchronize with Ryan to make that happen. The pre-prod hard fork, that also needs to be submitted. It's probably too late to submit it today. I had the agenda yesterday. I don't think Ryan is ready to submit the pre-prod hard fork governance action. But again, we are not seeing any issues that would cause any problems on pre-prod at this point in time. If once we submitted the governance action, it would take effect at the earliest 5 to 6 days after it was submitted. There's an opportunity to hold it back if we observe any problems on preview, for example. So what we're asking for here is the authority to, again, submit that governance action and then to enact it if there are no issues as soon as reasonably practical.
Can I add something? Just a question. So by the time hard fork on pre-prod is enacted, would we be having full releases of the node, so 11.0.1 and DBSync 13.7.0.5, which are now in pre-release? So
we don't need full releases for preview and pre-prod.
I know. I'm just saying that it would probably give better confidence. So what is the expectation?
The expectation, well, it depends on regression testing and performance testing. So those are the
Okay.
two outstanding items.
Okay.
11.0.1 is almost identical to 10.7.1. So we're not anticipating any performance issues, and it's unlikely there would be any serious regression issues.
Okay, one more question, if I may suggest. We wait until the hard fork working group meeting tomorrow, so we give a heads up to everybody and then submit it.
Yes, I'm not. We're asking for permission in principle as opposed.
Okay,
Is
I was
to-
just adding context, but yeah.
Yes. So let me. Otherwise, we'll need to either take the vote out of band, or we will take it next week. But that might delay the hard fork on pre-prod. So again, those in favour of submitting with the caveats that Bosco has raised, that we postpone, we wait for final confirmation from the hard fork working group meeting, probably tomorrow, possibly on Tuesday next week. So those in favour, thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
okay.
Yeah.
5 in favour. Those against, thumbs down. And again, any abstentions? No abstentions. So the motion is carried. Bosco, we can proceed.
Sure, I will let know also Ryan and make sure that these are in the pipeline.
Yes,
for
we
this
will need to synchronize with Ryan. We then have some other things that need to be done. So the mainnet parameter update, not quite as urgent as pre-prod. Alex, any reason to hold back on the mainnet upgrade at this point?
Kevin, you're saying here May 8th, question mark, which is this week.
Yes, so it could be, this is be for submission rather than enactment.
I know. I'm just saying the obvious because it needs prep work on the Ryan and Elena.
Yeah. So Ryan is going to have some work to do.
But May 8th for mainnet is too early if we haven't done it on pre-prod yet.
Fine. It's May the 13th.
Or
We have to do pre-prod first, wait an epoch, and then do mainnet.
So if we're upgrading, so let's hold, so we can hold that back until next week. So you can hold the voting back till next week, Alex.
Well, we could agree it conditionally, or because next week we're going to have to bring up other people on board and a whole bunch of context, guys.
True.
good point.
Shall we take a vote, a conditional vote? So the vote would be to submit the governance action for the Plutus upgrade on mainnet 1 epoch after it had been submitted on pre-prod. Alex?
Say that last part again. Didn't hear that acoustically.
I'm trying to work out what your 1 epoch refers to. Is it 1 epoch after submission, 1 epoch after enactment?
I guess that is pretty much the same. No, it can't be the same. But I mean, after enactment, we should give 1 epoch time for the new cost model on pre-prod to be testable. Although we do have, after submission of mainnet, 6 weeks until earliest go, until likely go live. So there is testing period before.
How long is the enactment period on? Because will we get it? Is it you submit it and it gets enacted at the next boundary in pre-prod?
On pre-prod, the voting is it's controlled as a small group of.
Right, so it's instantaneous, is it? In one sense, it's at the next boundary, is it?
It can be ratified at the next boundary and then enacted the epoch after. So it's a minimum of 5 to 6 days. But
Right, so it depends on the phase. So I think the thing is, let's go for a conditional in submission on mainnet, given that there is 1 week after the enactment of it on pre-prod. That's
That would also be my wish.
1 week or 1 epoch?
1 epoch, sorry, 1 epoch.
Okay.
That would also be my wish, yes.
Okay. So the proposal is mainnet submission of the Plutus upgrade 1 epoch after the submission. Sorry, 1 epoch after the enactment on pre,
Which is 2 epochs after submission.
approximately. It's the second epoch after submission. So those in favour?
Sebastian, if you want to vote before you go, yeah.
Final vote, I'm going now.
Go out on a high.
I'm stepping down now.
Do we have a
You
count?
did it to me.
So I counted Sebastian, Neil, myself, Alex, Leandros.
That's 5
That's 5.
out of 9.
Those against? None against. And any abstentions? Okay, so also confirmed. And we can revisit that next week for information for the incoming committee.
So TLDR, we have a pre-prod Plutus cost model as soon as possible this week, and then pre-prod hard fork likely this week, pending the hard fork confirmation, working group confirmation, right?
Correct. So the
Perfect.
and the half fork enactment is on pre-prod is likely next week.
Yeah, which is what we have aimed for in the plan anyway.
Yeah.
Oh no, we did aim for that week after. Yeah, we are ahead of the curve then. Yeah.
Great.
Good.
And the final thing, just for information, is we don't need to take a vote on this yet, but the proposal for the mainnet hard fork is that it would happen around May the 29th, the submission of the governance action. But
Yes.
we this is the point where we do need to get the testing completed on preview and pre-prod before we have confidence in that. But all is looking good.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Catch you all again very shortly.
Bye.
Bye.